few months ago, I made a review on Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, and I loved it. So I'm very excited to review Shadow of War for you guys and let you know what I thought of the game and if it's still worth buying in 2021. And real quick, before we get the video started, only 3% of you who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you enjoy the content, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. It's free, and you can always unsub later if you, for some reason, hate me. Anyways, on with the review.
To fight Sauron's champion! I am still waiting!
The story of Shadow of War is a direct sequel to Shadow of Mordor. The story picks up right after the end of that game. So if you have not played Mordor yet, I recommend you play that game first so you understand what's going on in the story and you understand who the characters are. You can still play the game and understand it a fair amount, but it may be very confusing. It would kind of be like watching the last episode of a TV show without watching any of the episodes beforehand. You understand what's happening, but you have no idea who any of the characters are and how they got to where they are currently. Now, the story of Shadow of War is nothing special, to be honest. The main story itself is actually really short and not a ton of interesting things happen until you get to the end. You meet a few side characters who direct Talion and Celebrimbor and help them advance to the ultimate goal of destroying Sauron. The side characters again aren't too memorable or interesting, with the exception of a few colorful and entertaining orcs like Ratbag from Mordor and Bruise. And again, the performances of the orcs really steal the show in these games. There are so many orc captains with all the different personalities and themes, and some of their dialogue would either have me burst out laughing or feel deeply disturbed.
There is no victory for you, no mercy, no quarter. You had your time as conqueror, but now you pay the price. What are we waiting for? Get him!
The voice work on the orcs is fantastic. It's so over the top and creepy that they just make for the perfect enemies, or even allies. Something else I really loved about the story was the amount of freedom it gave you. You could really finish the main story in any order and at any pace you'd like. But like Shadow of Mordor, the main story stuff isn't really all too interesting, with the exception of the ending, which was extremely shocking and very unexpected. Just in case you didn't know, the Middle-earth games do take place in the Lord of the Rings universe, which I got a lot of hate in my Mordor review when I said I hadn't watched any of the movies. So I did watch all the movies this time and did my best to understand the lore, just to find out that the Middle-earth games aren't even canon. So yeah, thanks guys. There might be some points in this story that might really frustrate die-hard Lord of the Rings fans, but I still found the story serviceable and the ending enjoyable regardless of it not being canon. Again though, the stories in these games really just take a backseat to the game's gameplay and nemesis system.
For blood, so kill me, then rest on throne. You not rest easy, I think.
Gameplay-wise, Shadow of War is basically the exact same as Mordor, which is great. It has that smooth Batman Arkham-style combat, with brutal executioners and finishers with some simple yet satisfying stealth. The combat is what really makes this game so addicting and so enjoyable. It's extremely smooth and freeing, and it's easy to learn but hard to master, and with difficulty settings being added, it is so much better. I just love the sheer brutality of the executioners and finishers on the captains and war chiefs. This game does an incredible job of making you feel extremely powerful. My only complaint with the combat from Shadow of Mordor is that it felt too easy, and with difficulty being added to Shadow of War, I set the game to the highest difficulty, which was brutal, and man was it challenging. I died a lot. I mean a lot. At the beginning especially, when I had none of the good skills or captains recruited and unlocked. The brutal difficulty basically makes it so you can be killed in 2 hits from any orc, which makes the combat way more intense and suspenseful, especially when you're stuck in a large horde of orcs where you have no hope of healing. Not to mention, if you die, the orc that kills you levels up and can possibly be promoted, making the game progressively harder the more you die, and you can get stuck in a rabbit hole of death very quickly, like I was at the beginning. The game does get a little bit easier as you unlock more skills and obtain new weapons and gear, which I think is a good thing because I want to progressively feel more powerful as the game progresses. The only thing that kind of bothered me, and this is just a nitpick, is that you have to re-unlock all the same skills you had to unlock in Mordor, which was a little frustrating because it felt like you were starting over again, and I think it would have given a greater sense of progression if you started with the skills from the previous game and continued to increase in power. But again, it's not that big of a deal, and it didn't take me too long to re-obtain all those skills. There's also a fair amount of new skills that were really fun to play around with, so no big deal. The nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor also returns and is even better in Shadow of War. There's a lot more depth and things you can do with it. You can now have your dominated orcs ambush other captains, or have them infiltrate and spy on war chiefs and overlord, and then have them betray each other. You yourself can now also be ambushed by captains and even betrayed by your own dominated orcs. You also have the ability to level up your orc captains with coins, or give them a mount or stronger weapons, and you can even garrison them so you can mobilize your orc army upon multiple regions. I was really impressed by the large level of detail added as well. Let's say you kill an orc captain or war chief, there's a possibility that he may rise from the dead in a future mission, or he survived your initial encounter and replaced the limbs you sliced up with machinery, and now he comes to claim his revenge. You may even run into an orc's blood brother that you killed and he's come for vengeance of his own. It's also possible to shame orcs and reduce their levels and make them deranged so they repeat the same things over and over again. I even ran into an orc war chief that I had fought in Shadow of Mordor, and he even brings up your last battle and says how long it's been since he's seen you. The detail and little stories you can create with this nemesis system is so cool, and is something that is completely unique to this series. Something completely new that is added in Shadow of War are the fortress sieges, and I absolutely loved these. You get to build your own army and siege a fortress, kill an overlord, and conquer the region for your own, and the battles feel so massive in scale and feel like something straight out of a movie. You can play these conquests online as well against other players' armies as you attempt to conquer Mordor. Pit fights are another new addition that allow you to pin your orc captains against each other in a death fight to increase their levels and skills, and these can also be played against other online captains. The way intel and strengths and weaknesses were handled also feel like a great improvement from Mordor. Now it's a lot more beneficial to scrounge the lands for intel, so you may learn how to quickly kill or dominate enemy captains and war chiefs by looking at what they are invincible to and what they are vulnerable to. Some captains seem like they were invincible to just about everything, but it just made the fights that more intense and challenging.
We fought and suffered, but still we stand. There is a new power in Mordor. You! In the days ahead, we will fight other battles and claim other fortresses. But starting today, Mordor belongs to you! Mordor belongs to the Bright Lord!
The world of Shadow of War is massive. Unlike the first game that only consisted of 2 small regions, Shadow of War consists of 5 massive regions, and each one is equally unique. The regions do a great job of contrasting from each other. They all have vastly different environments. We're talking snow, deserts, forests, and grasslands. Each region has its own hierarchy to invade and corrupt, and has its own fort that needs to be conquered. And there is a lot to do in all the regions. There aren't necessarily the traditional side quests that we're accustomed to. Instead, it's to kill or dominate a bunch of captains, do some events, and once you're ready and prepared, siege the fortress. You have total freedom in how you choose to go about that and what order you do it in. Now, since you pretty much do the same thing in each region, it can be labeled as repetitive, but since the core gameplay and nemesis system is just so addicting and fun, it never gets old, and by the time I conquered the 5th region, I was still itching to slaughter more orcs and conquer more forts. The game took me about 35 hours to finish, but it can easily take you 50 to 100 hours depending on the pace and rate you play the game. And there's also additional DLC campaigns that expand upon the ending of Talion's campaign, so you can really put an endless amount of hours into this game. It's just that massive in scale. Shadow of War released in 2017, so the graphics do still look really good even by 2021 standards, and it definitely looks good enough to satisfy anybody. It's not the best looking game from 2017, and it really isn't a dramatic improvement over Mordor, but again, it still looks good. And the performance on PC was phenomenal. I was really impressed. On ultra settings at 1440p with my RTX 2070 Super and i5 9600K, I was averaging around 120 FPS. The game runs very smoothly on PC, and this definitely makes it a good option for those of you who don't have great PCs. And the game surprisingly plays really well on mouse and keyboard, which was surprising to me because Shadow of Mordor was pretty much unplayable on keyboard and mouse due to mouse acceleration. But Shadow of War plays very nicely. And in terms of bugs, I'd say the game is well polished. There is the occasional hiccup every once in a while that usually involve invisible hit indicators or ragdolls flying, but other than that, it all felt very clean, and I didn't have a single crash during my playthrough. Now, one of the big cons of this game, and a reason it was controversial at launch, was the microtransactions. And although it's annoying to have in a AAA game, I'm going to be completely honest, I totally forgot there were microtransactions in the game. The store is never in your face, bugging you to buy something like you may see in the newer Assassin's Creed games, and there is absolutely no need to buy any of the microtransactions in the first place. Everything you can buy with real money can be easily acquired by just playing and enjoying the game. So, is Shadow of War worth buying in 2021? It absolutely is. It's a massive open world game with extremely fun and satisfying combat, stealth, and a very innovative nemesis system. It runs very well on PC and is overall really well polished. It has so much content and so many things to do, I don't know why you wouldn't get it. I would still recommend playing Shadow of Mordor first so you can understand the story, and Mordor is still a great game. Shadow of War is basically Shadow of Mordor, but on a much larger scale with more advanced and improved core features. Shadow of War is the perfect example of what a video game sequel should look like, and I am so happy I decided to play this series. If you're into games like Assassin's Creed or Batman Arkham, this is definitely your type of game, and I highly recommend it to you. Anyways, that about wraps up the retrospective review on Middle-earth Shadow of War. Let me know what you think of the game down in the comments, or if this video helped you decide to buy the game. If the video was helpful or enjoyable in any way, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. If you want to talk or play Shadow of War with me and others, feel free to join my Discord. The link is in the description. And other than that, thank you for watching and have a blessed rest of your day, Assassins.